Heavy footsteps can be heard signaling that someone is approaching. Yoon-ah, in a black beret and military uniform, walked through the barracks on a sandy, desolate land. Next to her, Sang-yeop was complaining in a whiny tone. But Captain Yoon-ah ignored his words, and simply wished that the annoying sand wouldn't get into her eyes. Sang-yeop reminded his captain that she already gained a nickname for being terrifying. Yoon-ah possessed remarkable military abilities, and naturally had the physique of a skilled soldier. As a result, she excelled at the military academy and emerged as the top-ranking captain among her peers. Despite being a woman, she achieved all of that. Sang-yeop joked around that Yoon-ah's attitude might prevent her from finding true love. Still, Yoon-ah's attitude was as dry as the sandstorm blowing around them. Sang-yeop was already used to Yoon-ah's cold attitude, but he was friendly because he likes her. As Yoon-ah and Sang-yeop are walking, a soldier hurriedly approached and called them. The soldier reported that a rebel's hideout village was destroyed. However, Yoon-ah didn't hear any further. The next moment, a rocket shell hit the barracks with a loud boom. The aftermath of the exploding shells was deafening even though Yoon-ah was quite far. Captain Yoon-ah quickly organized herself and commanded the soldiers to stay on guard. The surrounding sounds seemed to be echoing underwater and buzzing in her ears. Yoon-ah shook her head and quickly grabbed her rifle, as a thick cloud of dust rose, blinding her. However, a soldier suddenly warned at her amidst the chaos. Another rocket shell was incoming, and this time it was dangerously close to Yoon-ah's position. Boom! Another loud explosion was heard in the military base camp. Yoon-ah was swept away by the impact. As the light completely enveloped her, Yoon-ah lost consciousness as she felt her body float through the air. Afterwards, with great effort, Yoon-ah barely lifted her heavy eyelids and asked herself, why is she alive? She slowly got up, but she didn't feel any pain from the bomb, which hit her earlier. She looked around. The room was adorned with beautiful furnishings like a medieval European mansion. Startled, Yoon-ah quickly tried to get off the bed and assessed the situation. She also noticed that she was wearing a fancy dress, which she never worn before. At that moment, she heard the doorknob turn and someone entered the room. Without hesitation, Yoon-ah dashed and grabbed the incoming person's arm. She maneuvered the stranger's arm into the back, making the person scream in pain. Then, Yoon-ah pressed the maid against the wall and choking the maid with her arm. The woman, who was subdued in an instant, could barely speak when Yoon-ah asked who she was. At the same time, Yoon-ah felt something wrong with her body. It shouldn't be difficult for her to subdue someone, but strangely, she began to feel strain on her strength. The maid shouted. Moreover, the maid shouted a different name which is not Yoon-ah. Yoon-ah felt confused and widened her eyes at the woman's words. And, as soon as she opened her mouth and spoke, she stopped. The voice coming out of her mouth wasn't her own. Yoon-ah slowly began to realize what's happening. Meanwhile, the maid cried out and begged Yoon-ah to let her go because it hurts. As soon as Yoon-ah looked at her pale wrists, it was smooth without scars, unlike hers before. When she was still in the military, her entire body was full of scars due to gun wounds and harsh training. Her skin was also tanned because of the difficult environment, especially when assigned to the desert. The roughness of Yoon-ah's skin gained from hard work like a metal were all gone. Yoon-ah shouted and quickly looked for a mirror in the room. The woman who had collapsed pointed a mirror on the wall, and Yoon-ah swiftly ran to stand in front of it. Yoon-ah also asked the maid to repeat what her name was. Rosalie Judahart, the maid who was still bewildered by her lady's behavior, told the name. Yoon-ah grabbed her cheek with a shocked expression. The pain reminded her that this was no dream. Yoon-ah muttered her new name quietly. Her reflection in the mirror was that of a woman she'd never seen before. She also vaguely remembered that the name Rosalie was a character in the novel of her friend. Rosalie was the name of the friend of the female protagonist in the novel Lady Countess and the Crown Prince. It was just an extra named Rosalie Judahart, who Yoon-ah criticized 5 days ago. 5 days before Yoon-ah muttered profanities, saying that the characters and the plot sucks. She even described Rosalie, the female protagonist's friend, as the most pathetic. Yoon-ah's response was not Charin, Yoon-ah's friend, expected. For Yoon-ah, who has never been in a relationship, her criticisms were realistic but severe. She has also been raised by her military parents, and was never the type to feel butterflies, especially when she read about the Crown Prince. Yoon-ah just thinks that the Crown Prince is crazy. Yoon-ah looked at the mirror again. She regretted all the words she used to criticize about the novel. As a matter of bitterness with her reincarnation, Yoon-ah can only curse under her breath. 4 days later, Yoon-ah, who is now Rosalie, finally admitted to the absurd fact that she entered a novel. Still, her reincarnation to a different body as a novel character really feels unbelievable. And, as far as she remembered, according to the novel, Rosalie, the character that she possesses, will soon lose her Duchess position. She slowly recalled the contents of the book she had read. At a young age, Rosalie inherited the ducal title because she was the only blood relative of the Duke. The Duke, Rosalie's father, died and she had been living with Bella Judahart, her stepmother, since then. Rosalie eventually inherited the position and became the Duchess. However, she was very timid and lacked talent in being the Duchess and managing the land. That's why her stepmother naturally became the actual ruler of the duchy, reducing Rosalie into a puppet. Rosalie was robbed of her ducal power and became nothing. Rosalie's stepmother, Bella Judahart, then coveted the wealth and accelerated the decline of the duchy. Later on, she took all the property and fled with Marquis Wendell after waging a territorial war. With the help of the main characters, Rosalie won the territorial war but suffered a miserable life. Rosalie slowly tapped the table, while being immersed in her thoughts. She fell into deep contemplation about whether to change the fate of Rosalie, the owner of this body. She couldn't just sit back and accept her miserable fate without doing anything. Right after, Rosalie asked Emma, the maid beside her, to bring a paper and a pen. Emma, who was previously pinned to the wall, hurriedly brought what Rosalie had asked for. Afterwards, Rosalie began writing down all the things she could remember in the novel. She tried to remember all the details, so that she won't miss out important events. Marquis of Wendell would also give a large number of gems and Tita mine as compensation of defeat in the war. Rosalie planned to turn things over and win the territorial war, to revive the power of the duchy. Right then, Rosalie rang the bell several times to call Emma back into the room. Not long after, Emma entered the room. Emma slowly peeks her head in, since she is still wary about her lady's sudden change and violent behavior.
You are Lady Rosalie, right?
Emma can't help but question, however. Rosalie only gave a short answer. During 10 years Emma spent in the mansion, she had never seen Rosalie like this. Rosalie replied briefly, and glanced at Emma to show that she was still Rosalie even though she's not. With a determined expression, Rosalie promised that she will change from now on. Since she came here, Emma was the only one who had taken care of her in this room. In a way, it was only natural for Emma to be the first to wonder about Rosalie's changed behavior. Emma looked flustered as Rosalie stared at her face intently. She seemed nervous. Emma couldn't say anything as Rosalie spoke firmly. But if her mistress, Rosalie, didn't change, the future of the duchy would be bleak. In the end, she can only help dress Rosalie up. The fact that her master is willing to change made Emma both sad and proud. After doing her hair and preparing a dress, Emma asked where will Rosalie go. However, Rosalie only gave a vague answer in which Emma didn't understand. With a sharp look, Rosalie reminded Emma to be careful on how to address her from now on. Emma quickly changed her tone and addressed Rosalie as the Duchess. She still can't get used on her lady's change from a timid to a confident person. Rosalie quickly opened the door and Emma swiftly followed. They arrived at the training grounds. Thanks to the original Rosalie's memory, Judahart Duchy's geography was naturally drawn in her head. Suddenly, Emma called out Rosalie. Rosalie only glanced at Emma, out of habit, when she didn't answer, and approached the center of the training grounds without hesitation. The knights scattered all over the training grounds began to mumble and gossip. They wondered why the cowardly and shy Duchess visited the place. Rosalie cursed and clicked her tongue as she watched the knights lazily sprawl across the training grounds. Aaron, the head of the knights who was resting, appeared at the small commotion. He was a large man in his 30s with a dark skin. His well-trained muscles could be seen through. Rosalie spoke indifferently despite the ruckus, as she asked to see Commander Aaron. Aaron's tone showed no signs of welcoming Rosalie, however. Rosalie retorted back unexpectedly. Aaron's eyes widened in surprise at the insult towards Bella, which he heard for the first time. He fell silent for a while, and then spoke in a perplexed expression. Aaron, who hated Bella, also disliked Rosalie for becoming Bella's puppet. Rosalie fell silent by Aaron's offensive words. He was more hostile to her than she expected. She thought that Aaron would avoid eye contact. However, he just stood there. Rosalie didn't get angry at Aaron's sarcastic remarks, and only replied sternly. Aaron was taken aback at Rosalie's unexpected response. His rudeness was supposed to be punished. Out of nowhere, Rosalie called Aaron's name and her expression began to change.
Your loyalty to the family, is it still alive in your heart?
At Rosalie's question, Aaron's anger caused him to quickly regain his senses and raise his voice. He swiftly answered that he is still very loyal to the duchy, despite being angry with the management. His anger was understandable, because the duchy was full of corruption and abuse of power. Having heard Aaron's response, Rosalie simply acknowledged it, then turned around and left. It wasn't her fault that her stepmother coveted the duchy's wealth, but she still needs to correct it. Aaron felt a strange sense of surprise, because Rosalie didn't punish his rude behavior. From then on, Rosalie visited the training grounds without fail for a week. She simply observed and didn't seem to have any particular reason for being there. This made the knights walk in eggshells when she's around, but ultimately didn't interact with her. Afterwards, Aaron, who tried to ignore Rosalie for a week, finally approached her as if surrendering. Rosalie replied in an indifferent but honest answer that she was observing how the training was done. Aaron let out a small chuckle, thinking that the Duchess has no knowledge about being a knight. However, he was taken aback by Rosalie's unexpected criticism. He scowled at Rosalie's blunt assessment, saying that she doesn't know anything about training. Rosalie glanced back at Aaron's insult reproachfully this time. Commander Aaron flinched under her formidable gaze. He stepped back by instinct. The atmosphere and glare that radiated from Rosalie showed a stronger presence than a well-trained knight. She then began to point out the specific details of her observation. Aaron was speechless but can't seem to disagree. In return, he criticized Rosalie while struggling to swallow the bitter taste in his mouth, because in reality, the knights were lazy and lacking. Despite Aaron's harsh remark, her expression remained unchanged. Rosalie only smiled and asked if she can give a hand about the situation. Commander Aaron was skeptical about the help. However, Rosalie replied in a confident tone that she can pull things off. Afterwards, Rosalie turned around and left the training grounds. Upon returning to her room, Rosalie called Emma and asked the whereabouts of their former butler. Emma confirmed and wondered why Rosalie asked that question. Rosalie responded with a short but sharp answer saying that she will cut connections with Bella, her stepmother. It took a few seconds for Emma to process what Rosalie meant, so she panicked in the end. The current butler was Bella's closest confidant, and no one could touch him easily. Firing the current butler and bringing the former butler will definitely hurt Bella's ego. Despite Emma's worries, Rosalie didn't blink an eye and asked for Emma for a favor. 3 days later, Rosalie headed towards the Duke's office. Despite being in use for a long time, the office was spotless as the servants had cleaned it every day. Emma arrived and brought the former butler of the Judah Duchy, as Rosalie requested. A middle-aged man in his 50s bowed and greeted Rosalie with respect, even though most people looked down at Rosalie. But this man did not. Rosalie went straight to the point to rehire Dolan Dryden, the butler whom Bella dismissed 3 years ago. Dolan was a loyal servant who had served the Duke's family for generations, but was dismissed by Bella for refusing to obey her orders. Emma went to find and persuade him to come back. After being dismissed, he had barely managed to survive in a remote village. A few days ago, Emma had shown and convinced him to work again and that the Duchess has changed. Dolan hadn't believed Emma when she blurted out those words, but upon seeing Rosalie, he was convinced. The old Rosalie was very timid and cowardly princess, who neglected her Duchess duties and let her stepmother control things, but now, the person in front of him was different. Rosalie smiled faintly and formally asked Dolan to work for the Judah Duchy again. Dolan kneeled down on one knee. Due to his lifetime service as a butler, he knew it instinctively. The Duchess Rosalie now would bring the dukedom back to its former glory. Rosalie smiled satisfactorily and took out the Duke's ring, which had been lying inside the desk drawer for 5 years. The previous Rosalie couldn't wear the royal ring, which is a symbol of authority and power, but things will be different from now on. Now that she transmigrated as Rosalie, she will have to turn things around. Dolan just watched Rosalie silently as she slipped the ring into her finger. Meanwhile, in the sunniest room of the mansion, a loud scream was heard. Bella threw everything around she could get her hands, due to her rage. This was because as soon as Dolan returned, Rosalie quickly kicked out the current butler, Bella's closest aide. After hearing the maid's report, Bella brushed her curly auburn hair with an annoyed gesture. Bella sneered and gestured to the maids, who swiftly dressed her up to see Rosalie. Afterwards, Bella arrived at the Duke's office and opened the door confidently without knocking. Bella's entrance was imposing, but Rosalie ignored her and continued to organize the documents. Bella Darrett Judahart was the former Duchess of the Judahart Duchy. Bella shouted at Rosalie in a shrilled voice. She also slammed at the work table, without regard on Rosalie's authority and dignity. Rosalie looked at Bella, frowning at the screeching voice that touched her nerves. Bella resembled a cunning snake who had seduced the former duke, with her beauty according to the novel. Bella's curly auburn hair, eyes, pale skin along with her red lips exuded an enchanting but dangerous feeling. Whenever there was an opportunity, Bella always blurted out and insulted Rosalie's dead mother. The old Rosalie would have easily burst into tears at the mention of her mother's name. But the Rosalie now is different. Yoon-ah's family had been a military household for 3 generations. Thanks to that, Yoon-ah had a very competitive spirit and the determination to never lose. Whether she is from another world with different language, values and culture, all of that are meaningless. Only absolute authority and discipline matters. And since Yoon-ah was from the military, she will fight back if anyone crossed her line. Bella's sharp tone didn't seem to faze Rosalie at all, and she rose from her chair, making Bella flinch. Rosalie's gestures, which always appeared small and cowering, now emanated an aura of intimidation. Rosalie muttered, stepping away from her desk and approaching Bella, her stepmother. Bella tried to act tough but didn't finish her words. Rosalie cut her words off and Bella took an involuntary step back. Intimidated by Rosalie's formidable gaze, Bella tried to swing her hand towards Rosalie's cheek to slap her. Since Bella believed that she still had control over Rosalie, so she tried to discipline her. However, Rosalie caught Bella's hand easily despite her relatively small stature. Feeling herself struggling, Rosalie decided to start physical training from tomorrow onwards. Rosalie's body was just a pampered princess, without training after all. Bella stumbled back as Rosalie let go of her hand. She tried to raise her voice as she felt her pride hurt, but was immediately silenced. Bella felt like Rosalie's vibe and behavior had changed, from being a prey to a predator. The dark, cocky eyes of Rosalie looked straight at Bella, making her like a helpless prey. Upon saying that she is the current Duchess of Yoon-ah, Bella was unable to mock Rosalie's words. As Rosalie took a step forwards while uttering menacing words, Bella stepped back hesitantly. It was the first time that Bella was sweating buckets. While facing Rosalie's dominating presence, Rosalie didn't yell, but her words were loud enough for Bella to cower in fear. Completely overwhelmed by Rosalie's presence, Bella can only nod her head while struggling to speak. Shortly after, knocking was heard, and Dolan came in. Rosalie instructed butler Dolan to escort her stepmother back to her room. Dolan respectfully nodded at Rosalie's command and took Bella with him. By the next day, word had spread throughout the duchy that Rosalie lost her temper with Bella. Aaron was the first to come to the office when he heard the news. However, Commander Aaron was surprised to see a familiar face. It was butler Dolan who was with Rosalie. Meanwhile, Rosalie greeted Aaron. Seeing Aaron's happy expression, Dolan smiled. Aaron chuckled in cheerful tone and tried to confirm what happened yesterday. Still, Rosalie was indifferent and coldly told Aaron to proceed with the main discussion. Rosalie said while taking a sip of her fragrant black tea. As Aaron reluctantly sat down across her, Rosalie brought out the main topic, which is the plan to improve the knight's strength. Aaron was alarmed. It was the first time that he heard about Rosalie's plan. Rosalie added that she also wants to increase the knight's salary as a benefit. Aaron's eyes widened, and Rosalie got up to hand him a pile of papers from a shelf drawer. Rosalie proposed a new training program to improve the knights. As Aaron read the papers, his eyes began to tremble slightly. The paper was densely packed with the details of the new, but harsh training program. At first glance, the training seemed grueling and intense, but this was normal for Rosalie, who was in the military. Aaron scratched his neck awkwardly. Better salary must be compensated with more work. Aaron tried to reason out that it isn't easy to tame the knights, just from a mere salary increase. Rosalie put down her cup and stared at Aaron intently. Her gaze was unwavering. She pointed out the current knight's behavior towards defending the Yoon-ah duchy. The dukedom of Yoon-ah was known for having an excellent knight order, but what about now? Although Aaron's mouth twitched, he wasn't able to argue with Rosalie's remark. In the end, Aaron left the office to start the new training program and update Rosalie about the progress. Soon after, Emma came in and delivered a formal letter addressed towards Rosalie. It was common for nobles to use letters to communicate, and even invite the person in question. From Sonia Armand's, Rosalie's fingertips twitched slightly at the sender's name of the envelope. It was the name of Rosalie's friend, and the female protagonist of the novel and this world. Yoon-ah transmigrated in Rosalie's body as a side character, and she will finally be meeting the heroine. Emma exclaimed excitedly. Rosalie, who was timid, had been avoiding social parties. As a result, Rosalie never saw Sonia unless she came to the duchy to see Rosalie. In the original version of the novel, Sonia's visit will lead to knowing Bella's abuse towards Rosalie. Then, the crown prince will get involved by helping the heroine's friend and gaining favor. As far as Rosalie is concerned, she can handle and resolve the situation on her own. She didn't concern about Sonia too much, and asked Emma about something else instead. It was about a new customized outfit that Dolan will be picking up later. Rosalie smiled. It seems that the preparations are going well as planned. After a week later, Rosalie was making her way towards the training grounds, as scheduled. Still, the knights are still being carefree without knowing what's going to happen. Aaron gasped in shock as soon as he saw Rosalie's new outfit today. Rosalie arrived, dressed in comfortable training clothes unlike her usual princess appearance. What changes could Rosalie cause? As a former soldier from another world, will the crown prince and Sonia, the female protagonist, be able to notice in Rosalie's behavior?
That's all, folks. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment down below, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be posting more videos about good reads you may like, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. See you soon.